Hi everyone, my name is Molly and I'm one of the ECON 10A TAs, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about cost functions. So this is something very new that comes up at the end of the quarter that can be a lot different than what you've seen for the rest of the class. So there are a lot of different cost functions, so the purpose of this video is to help you keep them straight and understand the relationship between the different cost functions. So let's get started. Let's first talk about total cost, which is the sum of fixed cost and variable cost. Fixed costs are costs that do not change with the level of output, while variable costs are those that do change with the level of output. Additionally, we have average cost, which is total cost divided by quantity. We can also have average fixed cost, which would be fixed cost divided by quantity, and average variable cost, which is variable cost divided by quantity. So we can add these two up, and average cost would be average fixed cost plus average variable cost. So let's see what the graphs of these different costs look like. This right here is average fixed cost. Since fixed cost does not depend on the quantity of output, if we're looking at the average, it would be diminishing with the quantity of output. This right here is average variable cost. So at first it could be declining a little bit, but at some point it'll start increasing. This is because after the fixed inputs have been exhausted, they'll constrain the production process, so at some point the average variable costs will be increasing. So if you put average fixed cost and average variable cost together, that would give us average total cost, which will have this sort of U shape. Additionally, we have marginal cost, which is just the derivative of the cost function. We can put together the graphs of marginal cost, average cost, and average variable cost, like this. When marginal cost is below average cost and average variable cost, both average cost and average variable costs are declining. When marginal cost is above average cost and average variable cost, those two curves are increasing. So marginal cost hits both those two curves at their minimum. Additionally, let's talk about how average cost relates to returns to scale. Let's look at this graph of average cost. So for some quantity of output, let's say average costs are declining. If average costs are declining, that means as we produce each additional unit of output, the cost per unit is falling. That means we have increasing returns to scale. As we produce more and more output, we are getting more productive and having lower average costs. At this point, let's say we have constant average cost. So as we produce each additional unit of output, our cost per unit is remaining the same. That would mean we have constant returns to scale. Each additional unit we produce is just as productive as the last. Finally, we could have this increasing average cost. If this is happening, that means each additional unit we produce is costing more on average. In that case, we have decreasing returns to scale. We're actually getting less productive and having higher average costs over this range. So this graph should help you understand the inverse relationship between average cost and returns to scale. Finally, something important to understand for the cost functions is short run versus long run. So in economics, short run and long run don't mean any specific period of time. It's not like 1 year, 1 month, anything like that. Short run represents the time period where at least one of our inputs is fixed and we can't change it. Where in the long run, that represents the time period where all of our inputs are variable. We can change all of them. In the short run, a firm will produce as long as price is greater than average variable cost. And in the long run, a firm will produce as long as price is greater than average cost. Additionally, this means that sometimes in the short run, a firm will produce even if it has negative profits. This is because in the short run, firms have fixed costs, so it's sometimes a good idea to produce some units to cover those fixed costs, even if that means they have negative profits overall. In the long run, firms will produce at a profit equal to 0. If there are positive profits in the long run, more firms will enter to try to get those profits, which will drive the profits of all the firms down to 0. Additionally, if profits are negative in the long run, firms will exit the industry, which will drive the profits up. So, in this video, we were trying to get straight all the different cost curves going on in this class. So I hope this helped you keep them straight and have a better understanding of how they relate to one another. If you haven't already, go check out the video on the marginal rate of substitution. Also, it could be a really good idea to go check ECoach and look at the questions of the week and the test your knowledge questions to make sure you understand those. Otherwise, best of luck with studying. I know you'll do great, and check out office hours if you have any more questions. Thanks.